This story is located in the Reading Writing Workshop, page 122. Now, what I'm asking you to do is get your book out and find that page and follow along. Do your best to follow along word for word. You might make a mistake or two or get lost now and then, but keep trying. If you try all the way through and do the entire story, you can give yourself 100 points. That's 100 points in Skyward. That's a grade, a real grade. So do your best. It's an easy way to get a good grade. And we need to be able to use this in class. So let's begin. It's a shared read, the genre is biography, and the title, Growing in Place, the story of E. Lucy Braun. Essential question, how do we investigate questions about nature? Read about how Lucy Braun's classification of plants continues to help scientists today. Taking root, how could two different things have the same name? Emma Lucy Braun might have wondered that as a child. Born in Cincinnati, Ohio in 1889, Emma shared her first name with her mother. To avoid confusion, she used her middle name, Lucy. Naming things correctly became the basis for her life's work on plants. Even as a child, Lucy was interested in plants. She often joined her older sister, Annette, and their parents on energetic walks through the nearby woods. Energetic is one of your vocabulary words this week. Lucy enjoyed all the plants and wildflowers. Some seemed to shout at her with their wild colors. Others hid behind rocks and logs. Lucy asked her mother how to tell all the plants apart. Lucy's mother taught her to develop her powers of observation. Observation is one of your vocabulary words this week. She pointed out the number and shape of leaves on a stem. Lucy kept a record of their observations. She also learned to draw what she saw. Then she could compare and contrast all sorts of plants. Lucy and her mother gathered specimens for their herbarium, a collection of dried plants. They preserved leaves and flowers between sheets of paper. Lucy became more and more interested in botany, the study of plants. In high school, she started collecting and drying plants for her own herbarium. She continued adding plants all her life. And there's a picture there. This is an iris. This is a pink red stem filigrees. Next page. Branching out. Lucy and Annette attended the University of Cincinnati. Annette wanted to become an entomologist and study insects. Lucy took classes in geology, or the study of rocks and minerals. Her work with geologists transformed how she looked at the natural world. Transformed is a vocabulary word this week. She continued her studies in botany as well. Lucy also became interested in ecology. Ecology looks at how living things interact with their environments. Fellow ecologists helped her test an important theory. Theory is a vocabulary word this week. Lucy believed that plant life in some areas had been able to migrate over time. Migrate is one of your vocabulary words. She mapped this movement back to when glaciers covered those regions with ice. Excuse me. In full bloom. In 1917, Lucy began to teach botany at the University of Cincinnati. She and Annette lived in a house near the woods. Even at home, the sisters continued their scientific behaviors. Lucy tended both indoor and outdoor gardens. Annette studied the moths that fluttered in a flurry of wings around the lights outside. The sisters named part of their house the Science Wing. Behaviors is one of your vocabulary words, and flurry is one of your vocabulary words this week. Lucy collected plants from all around the country. She photographed many of them, too. Color photography was still new at the time. Because of that, people enjoyed her lectures and slideshows a great deal. And there's a picture, Lucy Braun's snake root. This plant grows in Kentucky and Tennessee. And there's some labeling, iris, robin's egg, nest. It says, by making sketches, scientists learn to see details in natural objects. Going on, the fruits of her labor. Later in her life, Lucy wrote many field guides. Field guides are books that identify plants found in a particular area. In 1950, she published her most important guide. It describes the plants in the forests of the eastern United States. Ecologists still use it to study changes in the forests over time. Today, Lucy has a few plants named after her. One of them, Lucy Braun's snakeroot, is currently threatened. Lucy's work in conservation, the protection of nature, may help scientists prevent its disappearance. Disappearance is one of your vocabulary words this week. Lucy Braun lived to be 81 years old. In her years as a botanist, Lucy collected nearly 12,000 plants. Today, her Herbarium is part of the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C. Visitors can study the plants she collected all her life. And there's a list over on the side, plant identification. Becoming a budding botanist. Follow these steps to identify plants in your area. Materials, a magnifying glass and a reliable field guide. 1. Identify the state or region and habitat where the plant grows. 2. Identify whether the leaf is evergreen or broadleaf. 3. Draw or photograph the leaf to record its shape and other details. 4. Observe the arrangement of leaves on the stem. See if they are opposite each other or not. 5. Narrow the list of possible plants in the field guide, then find an exact match. At the bottom, make connections. Talk about how the advice of Lucy's mother was helpful to Lucy's study of nature. You can talk with your guide on the side about that. Tell about a collection that you have or might like to start. How could you organize your collection? Something for you to think about.